The sirens were screaming, the kind of scream that clawed at the air and sliced through the night. Rain hammered against the cracked asphalt of a small town street, reflecting the red and blue lights that painted everything in chaos. And in the middle of it all, standing motionless behind a broken pickup, was him, a man clutching his chest, breathing hard, eyes locked on the woman pinned down behind her patrol car. A woman he hadn't seen in 10 long years, a woman he once loved more than life itself. Before we dive into this emotional, unforgettable story of love, regret, and courage, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. It helps us reach more hearts and remind the world that kindness and courage still exist. Ethan Cole wasn't supposed to be here tonight. He was supposed to be home, helping his 9-year-old son, Liam, finish his school project on Heroes. He'd promised they'd make it fun, cardboard cutouts, crayons, stickers, the whole thing. But then, a storm hit, the power went out, and Ethan, being the kind of man who couldn't sit still when others needed help, grabbed his jacket and volunteered to check the Old Town Bridge where a few cars had reportedly stalled in the floodwater. That was Ethan, a single dad, a mechanic, a quiet man who never spoke much about his past. People in the small town of Greenwood admired his kindness, his willingness to help anyone. But no one knew how deeply scarred he was. How every night, after tucking his boy into bed, he'd sit on that old porch and stare into the dark, wondering what went wrong 10 years ago. Wondering why she left. Her name was Claire Morgan. Once upon a time, she and Ethan had been inseparable. She was ambitious, full of fire, always dreaming bigger than the small town they grew up in. He was simple, humble, loyal, content with the life they had. But ambition clashed with contentment, and dreams collided with reality. When Claire left to join the police academy in another city, Ethan supported her at first. But when distance became silence and silence turned to finality, he was left broken, holding a letter she never came back to explain. He tried to move on. He found comfort in his work, and a year later, when an unexpected knock came at his door, a social worker holding a crying baby boy, saying the mother had passed away, Ethan became a father overnight. The baby wasn't his by blood, but he didn't hesitate for a second. He just whispered, "He is now." Liam became his world. Tonight, though, that world was about to collide with the past in ways Ethan could never have imagined. The storm roared as he drove down the deserted street. His headlights flickered through the downpour when a gunshot cracked in the distance. Then another. Then a scream. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He slammed on the brakes, jumped out, and sprinted toward the sound. Around the corner, he saw a nightmare unfolding. A police cruiser lay sideways across the road, riddled with bullet holes. Behind it, a uniformed officer crouched, returning fire toward 2 masked men taking cover behind a delivery truck. Her shoulder was bleeding. Her breathing was shallow. Her voice, though faint and trembling, was calling for backup that wasn't coming. And then Ethan saw her face, Claire. 10 years hadn't dimmed that face, just hardened it. Her eyes still carried that fire, but now there was exhaustion, pain, guilt. For a moment, Ethan froze. The memories hit like a flood. The laughter, the promises, the night she walked away. But then another gunshot whizzed past, snapping him back to reality. Without thinking, Ethan dove forward. He grabbed a metal pipe from the ground and slid behind the cruiser, landing beside her. "Claire," he shouted over the rain and gunfire. Her head whipped toward him. Confusion, shock, recognition. "Ethan," she gasped. What are you doing here?" "Saving your life, apparently," he said, forcing a grin despite the chaos. "Get out of here!" she barked, her voice cracking. "They're armed." "So am I," Ethan muttered, gripping the pipe tighter, though it was a lie. Sort of. The gunfire intensified. Bullets shattered the windshield, sparks flying. Ethan peered over the hood and spotted one of the gunmen reloading. Adrenaline surged through him, raw, unstoppable. He leapt out from cover and sprinted toward the truck, rain and bullets slicing past him. "Ethan, no," Claire screamed. But it was too late. He tackled the first man, slamming him to the ground. The second turned, aiming his gun, but Ethan swung the pipe, knocking the weapon aside. They struggled, rolling through mud and rain until a deafening crack echoed. Ethan froze. The gunman collapsed. Ethan's chest heaved. His hands trembled. He looked down at the pistol lying in the mud. Claire ran to him, clutching her wounded shoulder. "Are you insane?" she shouted, her voice trembling with equal parts fear and awe. H looked up at her, rain streaking down his face. "You used to say I never took risks." Claire's lips parted, but no words came. Just silence, broken by the storm and the wail of distant sirens finally approaching. Hours later, the flashing lights had faded. The suspects were in custody. The chaos was gone, replaced by the soft hum of rain on the roof of Ethan's garage, where he'd brought Claire after refusing to let her go to the hospital alone. She sat on a workbench, wrapped in a towel, her uniform torn, shoulder bandaged. Ethan moved quietly, making coffee on an old burner. "You always had this place," she murmured. "Smells the same oil and burnt toast." Ethan smiled faintly. "Some things don't change." "Some things do," she whispered. He turned, meeting her eyes. "Why did you leave Claire?" She flinched, like she'd been waiting for that question for years. "Because I was scared," she admitted. "I wanted more. I thought chasing my dream meant I had to give up everything else. And then, when I realized what I'd lost, I didn't have the courage to come back." Ethan looked down, jaw tight. "You could have told me." "I know," she said softly. "But you had already built a life without me." He paused, setting down the coffee cup. "I didn't build it without you. I built it because you left." Tears welled in her eyes. "And the boy?" "Lim," Ethan said, his voice warming. "He's my son." Claire hesitated. "Your biological son?" He shook his head. "No. But he's mine in every way that matters." For a moment, the silence between them was filled with something heavier than regret, something that felt like healing. A week later, Claire visited Ethan's home. Liam ran to the door, curious about the stranger who'd been the topic of whispered late-night talks between him and his dad. "Hi there," she said, kneeling to his level. "You must be Liam. Your dad's told me you like superheroes." "Yep," Liam grinned. "My dad's one too." Ethan chuckled behind them, but Claire's eyes shimmered. "He's right about that," she said softly. As days turned to weeks, Claire began stopping by more often, sometimes to check on her shoulder, sometimes to bring Liam a toy car, sometimes just to sit quietly with Ethan on the porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. The awkwardness slowly melted into laughter, the silence turned to conversation, and the pain of the past began to heal. Not by forgetting, but by forgiving. Then came the day Ethan's phone rang. Another emergency. A fire on the east side of town. Without hesitation, Ethan grabbed his jacket. Claire, now cleared for duty, followed him. This time, they stood side by side, partners, not strangers. And when the flames rose and smoke filled the night, Claire found herself watching Ethan through the chaos. The same man who once fixed engines was now fixing her soul, one brave act at a time. She realized that love wasn't about running away to find something more. It was about standing beside the one who already gave you everything. Before we reach the powerful ending of this story, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe. Your support helps us share more stories that remind the world of love, redemption, and second chances. Weeks later, the town gathered for an award ceremony. Ethan was being honored for his bravery, for saving a police officer under fire. But when the mayor called him up, he hesitated. Instead, he turned to Liam, who was sitting beside Claire. "This little guy," Ethan said into the mic, his voice thick with emotion, "was the real hero. He's the reason I have courage every day. He's the reason I ran into Gunfire that night, because I wanted him to grow up knowing. When someone's in danger, you don't think twice. You just go." Applause thundered through the hall. Claire wiped her tears, smiling through them. After the ceremony, she took his hand. "You saved me twice," she said quietly. "Once from that gunfire and once from myself." He looked at her, eyes soft. "Maybe we can save each other now." She smiled, and in that moment, it was as if 10 years dissolved into light.